Welcome to Dire Straits. I'm Amanda Monty.
I'm Tracy Clark-Flory.
We're talking about straight people having sex today, friends. And we're doing it by way of perhaps the worst guide on this subject, the sex column at the glossy alt-right women's magazine, Evie, which journalist EJ Dickson called a Gen Z Cosmo for the far right. As we dig into Evie's How to Please Your Husband guides and generous use of pseudoscience, we will explore what the magazine tells us about conservative sexual politics today, and we will bring some clarity to how the right uses misleading and warped ideas of empowerment and sexual liberation to sell really limited and regressive models of sex and love that are anything but freeing. We're also exploring some of the uncomfortably conservative ideas we once had about sex and our experiences with topics that come up in Evie's sex column, like performing for the male gaze by writing cowgirl, and grieving, as one Evie writer puts it, through our vaginas. But the juicy personal stuff is going to be behind a paywall. To get access to the full episode and other bonus content, make sure to upgrade your subscription at direstraitspod.com. We can't do this without your support. So for the uninitiated, I thought we should start with a general primer on Evie, an online magazine that claims over 100 million views per month, that also publishes one print edition a year, which they liken to a coffee table book. I think it's like $30, $40. It's very expensive.
Jeez.
Yes. They have columns on health, beauty, style, living, culture, and news, as well as sex and relationships. Evie claims that its audience is evenly split between conservative and liberal women, but its content is firmly conservative, as we will see. So, Tracy, I thought we should start by looking at the magazine's landing page, just kind of get a general feel for it. Can you read some of their headlines for us?
Sure. Okay, we have Britney up top, and the headline is "The Uncomfortable Truth About Freeing Britney." Okay, what is that? I'm so curious. More than market value materialists and the math of modern love. I can only imagine what their math is like.
I thought you would like that.
Yes. The best summer wedding guest dresses under $200. Okay. All right. Then they have like their health, beauty, style sections that are all very like, I don't know. It's kind of like the imagery is like very Victoria's Secret, circa like 1995, I want to say. Like there's this kind of like, sexy fashion glam sort of thing going on. Oh, also women are using ChatGPT to lose weight. Here's how you can too. No.
That's their, what is that? Is that their health section?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's their featured story under health is losing weight through ChatGPT.
Right. You'll see a lot about wellness in the health section, for sure.
It seems like it's very like pop culture forward. Like they're like, they're writing about the materialists, the movie starring Pedro Pascal and Dakota Johnson and Chris Evans, which I just wrote about, so they're like definitely like dwelling in the mainstream pop culture world.
Yes.
But they're also dwelling in the ballerina farm and dieting with ChatGPT realm.
I would love to compare the piece that you wrote on the materialist to this one. But alas, we have a lot to get to today. So a little background on the magazine. It's been around since 2019. The New York Times recently ran a profile of the magazine that featured its co-founders, Brittany Martinez, who started the magazine with her husband, Gabriel Hugoboom, which I can't say his last name without laughing. The couple who started Evie also owns a menstrual cycle company called 28, which is backed by Peter Thiel. And 28 claims to be the only scientifically validated app for cycle-based wellness. And it sells a detox supplement for those who are breaking up with their birth control. Martinez and Hugo Boom claim that their magazine is simply an alternative to more liberal women's magazines.
In that New York Times profile, doesn't Brittany also criticize like girl boss feminism and all feminists as like self-hating and man-hating?
Yes, they definitely do. So we have that anti-feminist tip again.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that feels very characteristic of the larger tradwife ideology, like the way that the right takes up these leftist critiques of corporate and commercial feminism, but then like styles them as what all feminists stand for. And then the trad image kind of comes to stand in for a new relief from boss feminism, a sort of like soft life, pro-feminine vision of womanhood, which, you know, of course is not oppressive.
No, definitely not. Yes, totally. And I should pause here to share my own brief affair with Evie, since a writer at Evie has claimed that actually I am the reason that people hate feminism.
You are the reason?
Me, specifically.
I mean, that just makes me like you even more, honestly.
Well, that's why we have a podcast together. So when my book came out, I had an excerpt published at The Guardian, which the alt-right commentator Matt Walsh promptly tweeted about. After that, do you still call it a tweet? He X'd about?
Yeah, no, I refuse to call it like X'd. Like, no.
No, yeah, no, same. After that, though, a writer at Evie who goes by the name Gina Florio picked up the sentiments in Walsh's tweet, like sort of verbatim, and essentially wrote a hit piece about my excerpt. So right away, we can see that this is a publication that is anti-feminist, as we've pointed out, but also very responsive to figures like Matt Walsh, who frequently demonizes LGBTQ plus people and promotes racist and anti-transgender conspiracy theories. The SPLC also points out that Walsh has led a campaign against gender-affirming healthcare that has targeted American hospitals with harassment and has advocated executing doctors who provide healthcare to transgender people.
Yeah.
And he is also known for perpetuating the notion of anti-white racism, which is grounded in white supremacy. This is SPLC's words, and for spreading conspiracy theories about supposed campaigns of anti-white violence. Florio also called The Guardian, where my work was published, a known feminist rag that routinely posts content supporting trans-identified men infiltrating women's spaces. And I also want to highlight a rather curious paragraph in Florio's essay because it will become relevant to us as we kind of try to parse out Evie's sexual politics.
Okay. All right. So it says, in a society where we're below the birth replacement rate and nearly half of women between 25 and 44 will be single and childless by 2030, this, women complaining about motherhood, can be depressing to witness because the data shows time and time again that married mothers are generally happier and healthier than women who choose to avoid marriage, but our culture still largely encourages women to shirk the traditional structure of marriage because they claim it only brings despair and disappointment. The latest from The Guardian reveals a mother who somehow finds a way to compare motherhood to unwanted sexual encounters. So you are that mother. Where are they getting the statistic that women are happier and healthier when married? Because I thought it was like the opposite.
That is a good question. And I think we will see later that Evie likes to use questionable statistics and science. Yes. And I also just want to point out that Florio, the author of this piece, is an influencer who teaches busy moms how to lose weight.
God.
And has highlights on her Instagram about mold toxicity. She's co-written a book called Fat and Unhappy, Why Body Positivity is Killing Us.
God.
And how to save yourself. And she creates anti-birth control and anti-universal healthcare content while recommending...
Sounds like an awesome person. Wow. What a cool human being.
She likes dry brushing. And she has all these really great tricks to stop nighttime overeating.
What?
So, you know.
Jesus. Oh my God. Okay.
Yes. So there's a lot of, like women are to blame for their own oppression stuff here.
Yeah.
Obviously fat phobic, diet culture-y stuff, maha stuff, anti-birth control vibes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Martinez, the co-founder of Evie, told Rolling Stone that progressive women's media has made a generation of women more depressed and unhealthy. and romantically unfulfilled.
Right. So we're really seeing that theme develop here. Okay.
So it's no wonder, of course, that Evie has allied itself with the tradwife image. In November of last year, the magazine got widespread attention and endured the ire of many feminists after it featured Hannah Nealman, known on Instagram as Ballerina Farm, on their 2024 print cover.
Mm-hmm.
She was seductively milking a cow, you may recall, in that cover shot.
How could I forget? Yep.
And the magazine's website still has the profile, as you mentioned, up as a digital feature titled Ballerina Farm and the New American Dream. It is a sepia-toned montage of Hannah. She's in like full glam, wearing various milkmaid dresses, hanging out on her farm, waving at, I don't know who she's waving at, her husband, I would assume, gazing into a basket of, I think, eggs, which tracks if you know anything about her egg apron scandal. She's literally getting a piggyback ride from her husband. She's milking more cows, of course, and her husband, meanwhile, is playing with some lassos on his horse and forking some hay.
As one does on a farm, you know, there's so much downtime. You're just like playing with lassos, just
right?
Like,
it's
to
really,
pass the time.
It's not hard work at all. It's just beautiful. It's this very Taylor Sheridan-esque, like white cowboy meets white farm girl makes white nuclear family vision, right? And it's you know, we should point out a really overt hetero American fantasy or vision of the American dream.
Right.
Totally. And I think it's pretty notable that this, feature at Evie was published like 4 months, I think, after the controversial profile of her and her family was published at the Times of London, which featured her sort of shirking feminism and some, I don't know, kind of blink twice energy.
Yeah. I have to admit that I am very resistant to engaging with the tradwife stuff at all. Like, I just really can't stomach it. But even I could not escape the Hannah Evie mag cover. And I did end up writing about the milkmaid dress that she wore on the cover, which was a dress that was made and sold by Evie. And she wore it very conservatively in the magazine, but then they sold it using a super busty model who was like literally spilling out of the dress with visible areola.
I can picture her in my mind. Didn't she have a milk mustache too?
Oh yeah, there's a milk. I forgot about that part. I think I wanted to erase that from my memory, but she also had a milk mustache. Oh God, which was like, don't even. It just, that like invites really awful images in my brain that I won't share because you know what I'm talking about.
We know. And
at the time, I wrote about how I felt that we were in the midst of a resurgence of like right-wing erotic nostalgia, not just for the 1950s housewife, but also like a pre-Me Too era, like a 2000s era of unapologetic objectification.
Mm-hmm.
And that magazine cover, along with the marketing of the sexy milkmaid dress, felt to me at the time like a glimpse of the sexual politics of the magazine and maybe the right wing more broadly. Like, basically, women are both sex and reproductive object. They are both the milkmaid and the cow. And so I'm curious to see how that thesis bears out with your deep dive on the magazine.
Yes. Well, I mean, I think you're right. The part of the sexuality here, as we're going to see, is related to owning the means of reproduction. So she's a sex object because she's fertile and maternal and busty, you know, because she's a cow. And as you say, she's also the one who's doing the domestic work of taking care of the cows and milking them. And I totally feel you on the resistance to the trad discourse. Like, I have a really hard time. I am not someone who was ever like sucked into the momfluencer lore. Yeah. I don't think. I mean, I think we all are like ambiently suffering from it. But I think that the Evie and Ballerina Farm mashup and the milk stuff, it really drove home for me just how much of an impact this online politics has on our current climate.
Yeah.
It was hard, you know, to look away, as you said. And, you know, I think Hannah's sort of idyllic life and the kind of life that Evie is promoting, it's like the visual rhetoric of the right targeting women and men, right? And it's all really directly tied to this white supremacist frontierism. I've been like really obsessed with the Taylor Sheridan stuff lately, which maybe we'll have to do an episode on. It
I
feels
know
really
nothing about it. Yeah, so we will.
Oh God, yeah. It feels really connected to that sort of cowboy, visual rhetoric.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is really connected to it. And of course, to the rollback of women's rights, that characterizes the moment. The content at Evie is also, it's really transphobic. As we said, it's fatphobic, it's anti-feminist, and it's very against discussing how sexuality and motherhood might be related, even though it features this highly sexualized content about mothers.
Right. But I bet mothers are only allowed to be sexual within very tight and particular parameters.
You're so smart. Yes, exactly. So, given what we know about the magazine, how are you feeling about diving into their sex column?
I mean, I genuinely can't wait. I just genuinely can't wait because it's going to be a disaster.
I mean, I am troublingly excited to talk about it.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so all the sex writing at Evie is behind their paywall, which is so hard to get through. Even if you have a subscription, you have to enter all these codes and you have to do it instantly, or it's crazy. So as we get deeper into the sex content and share some of our own sexual experiences, that's all going to be behind our show's paywall too. And I do want to thank preeminent momfluencing scholar Sarah Peterson for lending me her paid subscription to Evie so I could research the show and highlight that no Dire Straits money was spent on this magazine.
Thank goodness.
I did, however, sign up for a free subscription just as I was kind of poking around. And the message that I received after I subscribed was, and I quote, "Help celebrate femininity in a masculine world."
Wow, there's so much there. Femininity is replacing feminism. Femininity is empowerment. It's your power.
Right.
And instead of talking about patriarchy, we're talking about masculinity. Damn. Yeah.
It's a masculine world. It's a man's world. It makes me think of that. Who came out on the Republican convention stage to "It's a man's world"? Was it Trump? I digress.
God, they're so dumb. Yeah.
They're so dumb.
It's, I just can't even keep track anymore of all the absurdities. I'm like, oh yeah, you mentioned that. I'm like, yeah, that happened. I forgot because so many other absurd things have happened since.
Because you blocked it out. It's a trauma response. Okay.
Exactly.
So really quick, before we get into the sex column, I thought we should get a taste of what you can find in the Evie relationships column. Because of course, for Evie, as you can imagine, Tracy, sex and relationships must go together. So I'm sending you a piece. Can you read the headline for us? And then we're going to read a little bit of this together.
The headline is, "Ever wondered what Mr. Darcy would say about your love life? Use this exact prompt and brace yourself."
Truly, brace yourself.
The answer to the question in the headline is that no, I have never wondered that. But and then the subhead is, "After years of dating in New York City, I feel pretty hopeless."
And the author is
Anonymous.
Interesting
Cool.
choice.
Yeah.
Okay, I really want to read the whole thing, and it's going to be hard not to read every single one of these out loud. Like the list of guys that this anonymous person has dated, which include startup guy, finance guy, the male feminist who cried after we had sex and then ghosted her, the artsy guy who talked about polyamory, and the nice guy who split the bill and then asked if I'd slept with anyone since our last date. But let's scroll down a little bit and let's read the interaction between me, who is the anonymous author, and Mr. Darcy. I think you should be Mr. Darcy.
Okay. Happily.
So this is what Mr. Darcy would say to a guy who wanted to split the bill.
"A gentleman pays. He does not hesitate. It is not a matter of finance. It is a question of honor. He has requested your company. He must mark that request with respect. To suggest otherwise is to reduce the occasion to a transaction and to place you in the role of a partner in commerce rather than a woman he seeks to win. If he wishes to share burdens, let him do so within marriage." All right. Yep.
I like your accent. I like your Mr. Darcy voice.
I feel like I should have prepared for this moment. My acting debut.
You're going to get another chance. Scroll down a little bit. You will see this woman, has found out that a guy that she liked was Republican. She says, I was uncomfortable, Mr. Darcy, when I realized he probably voted for Trump, which sucks because up until that moment, everything had been great. So what does Mr. Darcy say to that?
Politics? That is not a subject to be placed above character. Men, as though those two things don't have anything to do with each other, men vote, they debate, they concern themselves with the affairs of government. But a gentleman's worth is not determined by his alignment with this party or that. It is known by his conduct, his honor, his manner of treating others. If you found him agreeable before you learned of his political views, then the fault lies not in him, but in you. Prejudice disguised as principle is still prejudice. He ought not to judge your character by the elegance of your dance or the precision of your pianoforte. And I mean, at least they had fun with this. I mean, like, whoever wrote this, they had fun with it. And you ought not to judge his by the box he ticked at an election. Oh my God.
My God, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. I mean, yeah, they're real big on honor. I see that. And also I love that like politics is men's domain. Clearly. Yes. And also, like, yeah, the separation of, like, politics from character is interesting, right? It turns politics into this untouchable domain that belongs to men, and it's the world of men's debate. It has nothing to do with his character.
And also, I should just point out that they have spelled honor HONOUR.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like this yearning for like a sort of like Victorian, relationship with this kind of, stand-up guy.
It's interesting to think about how in this time when we're seeing the radicalization of young men and this like political disparity between young men and young women, that you would then have this sort of explaining away of conservative and right-wing politics as like no big deal.
Right.
So this idea of like this romantic figure, Mr. Darcy, is telling you that it's all good if the man you date doesn't believe that women should have a right to choose or be able to vote, because like that doesn't really speak to his character. So it's all good. Like then the dating field just totally opens up to you and, your love life isn't such a problem anymore.
Let's read the next one. A guy once told me to wear a pretty dress to our date. I thought that was weird, so I wore pants, heels, and a top. The place was romantic, and he said it was strange I didn't dress up.
Why must women now dress to obscure what was meant to be revealed with grace? A well-fitted gown does more than flatter the eye. It signifies order, propriety, and respect for the occasion. A lady in a dress does not merely adorn herself. She declares that she takes both herself and her company seriously. To attend a romantic engagement in trousers and a blouse is not only careless, it is willfully ungracious. I do not doubt the gentleman was disappointed, and I should think he had every right to be. I mean, we're like actually asking Mr. Darcy for like sartorial advice. Yeah, of course Mr. Darcy would be outraged by that, but it's 2025. Like,
right. Like, it's like women shouldn't wear pants.
Yeah. My God. That's where we're at. Cool.
I mean, honestly, we could probably stop there, and we already understand the sexual politics.
That is the sexual politics. Yeah, women should wear dresses, and for them to wear pants is an offense.
Make America Victorian again.
Yeah.
So, without further ado, we're going to look at this X column.
Awesome.
And it's even worse. So, as we enter the digital folds here, Tracy, now I'm like in the Mr. Darcy voice.
Yes, it's fun.
To start us off, I wanted to discuss an article about how people who are into kink are really just bad in bed, according to this Evie writer. This article in the sex column includes a rant about how porn is responsible for the rough and violent sex that young people have today, which I imagined you might have some thoughts on.
Yeah, I mean, I see all of this as being part of this like trend in recent years of critiquing sex positivity. And those critiques have obviously come from feminists who have rightly looked back at the neoliberal co-optations of the movement, all those like empty commercialized gestures toward notions of sexual empowerment, which I know that we both are totally down with and have engaged with. The both of us have critiques of the commercial mainstream and neoliberal derailing of sex positivity. But those critiques have also come from right-wing reactionary feminists, including writers like Louise Perry, who wrote The Case Against the Sexual Revolution. Those folks, those reactionary feminists, are exploiting the dissatisfaction that a lot of young women understandably feel with heteronormative love and sex, especially when it comes to hookup culture, instead of selling those disillusioned young women on equality, justice, collective liberation. They're selling them on quote unquote family values and traditional gender roles, as well as heteronormative marriage and motherhood. They're basically selling them conservatism, evolutionary psychology, biological essentialism. They're selling them a bunch of crap, and it'll only make them more miserable and more disempowered, just like we were saying earlier with the anti-feminist tradwives. And so, like, while I think there are valid critiques to be made about the way that things like sexual choking or suffocation, more accurately, how those things are being popularized outside of any kind of like safe, sane, and consensual understanding of kink and BDSM, I also think that those critiques are often part of broader critiques of anything that falls outside of like cis, hetero, marital, monogamous, reproductive sex. So like rough sex is lumped in with everything from casual sex to the mere existence of queer and trans people. They're all sort of argued against as bad because they're seen as a threat to cis, hetero, marital, monogamous, reproductive sex. And it's just like, the queer feminist scholar Gail Rubin's theory of the charmed circle of sexuality, where like cis, het, monogamous, reproductive, vanilla, marital sex is charmed. Anything outside of it is bad. But it's not only bad, it's also considered a threat to that charmed circle of activity.
The Evie article kind of explicitly states this in a lot of ways. The article on kink. It also includes speculation on the causes of the pretty well documented sexual downturn, which, as you know, I've written about. People are having less sex on the whole, and researchers have cited a lot of reasons for that, from like increased awareness of consent, which is, good, to technology, dating apps, like the list goes on. But the Evie article chooses to focus on this one particular statistic that men 18 to 30 aren't getting laid as much. So here is the data that they cite. I'm pushing it over to you.
Okay. So it says that roughly 30% of men under 30 are virgins. Many speculate this downward trend into perpetual sexlessness, so dramatic, is the result of widespread porn use among younger generations, and one could certainly ascertain
Mr. Darcy.
Yes, I think all of their articles should be read in that voice, that the kink crowd is modeling its behaviors toward what they see in porn. Okay, first of all, I hate the phrase porn use. It sounds like drug use, like you're using, and that feels very intentional, and I hear that all the time with this kind of stuff. Because like watching porn sounds too mild, so they had to upgrade to use, which like I think dovetails perfectly with claims towards porn addiction. But look, like a million think pieces have been published over the last decade or so about the sexual downturn. I think that folks tend to pick their pet topic. It's technology, or it's apps, or it's porn, or it's the rise of conservatism / misogyny among young men. There are so many different potential slices here to explain this data that we really don't understand very well. And I would imagine that the actual answer includes many different slices.
Because our attitudes about sex include many different slices.
Right.
But for Evie, there is a clear moralism around porn. So the author of this article on kink actually explicitly claims that vanilla sex is superior. That's a quote. Vanilla sex is lovemaking, which we're going to hear in different terms in a minute. So there is this really clear distinction between bad, evil sex and real divine sex. And the article also includes sort of familiar and somewhat more palatable kind of gateway to anti-porn claims, such as that men who are violent in bed don't care about you, which, okay, but also that women should vet men because of this for vanilla sex. So it's this sort of like pick a high value man ethics. I mean, there's a lot of kind of like the language of like incel culture that's bubbling underneath here or reframed maybe in different ways here. But this is all part of the sort of broader sexual ethics that is really typical at Evie, that there is one good kind of sex. And so I really wanted to dig a little bit further into how this content lures women in, because I noticed that, you know, they really do a great job posing as a kind of sex positivity, even a kind of sexual liberation, even though all these ideas are floating through the writing. Tracy, I'm sending you one of my favorites from the Evie sex column.
Goody.
Can you read the headline for us?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Mastering Cowgirl. How to ride your husband, of course your husband, how to ride your husband into delirium. And it's paired with this image of a like blonde, very tan, thin woman in a pink bikini, like with a thong and a cowgirl hat. Like it's just, oh my.
Yeah.
She's wearing a cowgirl hat.
Yeah.
It's very on the nose.
The cowgirl, cowboy sort of dream resurface. It also looks like is she in a bathing suit? Is she in like an outdoor shower? I don't know what's going on there. But the pink cowgirl hat feels very significant. And right away, this article claims that cowgirl is the most visually stunning, physically intense position.
Yeah. I mean, clearly, given the anti-porn sentiments, they aren't speaking in terms of an imagined audience. Like, it seems pretty centered on the dude in this arrangement. He's the viewer, the spectator. He's all that really matters. The only perspective that matters.
Totally. Yes. And what I really want to emphasize here, since our listeners aren't looking at these pieces, is that this article is a service piece. So it's literally an instructional list of how to ride your husband into delirium. Tracy, do you know how to ride your husband into delirium? Did you know that it first requires you to be visually stunning?
I mean, what's interesting to me is that my association with cowgirl is like greater pleasure for me. Uh-oh, you've hit the paywall. That means you're missing out on the rest of this conversation, and things get really juicy from here on out. To upgrade to a paid subscription and get access to all of that, go to our Substack at direstraitspod.com. That's straights with a GH. Paid subscribers get 2 full episodes every month, access to the Dire Straits online community via chats and episode threads, plus a growing list of special features and bonus content. Dire Straits is a 100% independent, scrappy, aging millennial feminist operation. We are not financially dependent on corporate media or advertisers. If we had normal day jobs, the podcast would probably get us fired from them. The best way to support our work is through a paid subscription. Come join us.